We began our service this morning by acknowledging the power of coming together as a community, reminding ourselves that when we share our happiness with others, it becomes greater, just as when we share our troubles, they weigh less heavily on us. How wonderful it is to be able to celebrate this morning the bat mitzvah of Yasmin and welcoming Helen formally into the Jewish people. We rejoice in song with our wonderful choir and with a hearty mazel tov. But can we really celebrate, enjoy, while we are also so acutely aware of the brokenness of the world, as we continue to watch with great concerns the horrors that are unfolding in Ukraine? Last night, Rabbi Aaron spoke about one of our twin communities in the Ukrainian city of Lutsk, who are doing their utmost to stay sane, despite air raid sirens interrupting their Shabbat services. Well, sadly, as a people, we are well versed in the pattern of intermingled joy and sorrow. Throughout history, the Jewish people have perfected the art of laughter through tears. And if we needed any more proof, Helen, that you truly are Jewish, then it is because you also have already perfected the art of laughter through tears. In fact, the Jewish calendar regularly juxtaposes times of joy and sadness, as many of our festivals are preceded by fast days, such as is the case for the festival of Purim, which we will be celebrating next week. The American Reform Rabbi Joel Mosbacher draws from these calendrical juxtapositions an important Jewish lesson. Gam zeh ya'avor, this too shall pass. When you've come through a difficult time, Gam zeh ya'avor, this too shall pass. It won't always be dark and difficult, even when you can't imagine ever seeing the light again. At the same time, when you're feeling on top of the world, Gam zeh ya'avor, this too shall pass. Make time, therefore, to appreciate every moment of joy, dancing, singing, and abundance. They won't last forever. They too shall pass. The author of Ecclesiastes writes, "There is a time for mourning and a time for dancing. But mourning and dancing are never fully separated. Mourning may turn into dancing, and dancing into mourning." Our Torah portion this week, Vayikra, is the opening passage of the third book of the Hebrew Bible, known in English as Leviticus. Although you had the privilege of glancing into the Torah thanks to the marvels of technology, while Yasmin read so beautifully from chapter 5, you will not have been able to see the small scribal quirk found in every scroll at the beginning of our portion. So let me just briefly get up an image of the relevant section for you. This is also the marvels of technology. If you look carefully, you will see that the final letter of the first word, the Aleph of Vayikra, is smaller than the other letters, and it's also slightly superscript. It is one of several examples where scribal tradition dictates that a certain letter must be written smaller or larger. While we sadly have no record as to why these scribal traditions developed, these little quirks provide us with opportunities for new interpretations. My Israeli colleague, Rabbi Chaim Shalom, pointed out to me this week that by introducing the small aleph, the Torah scroll connects the Hebrew words Vayikra, which is what we are reading, and Vayaker, if you read it without the aleph. While the word Vayikra means he called upon, the word Vayaker, as it appears in the famous story of Bilam and the donkey, is connected to the verb mekareh, something happening by chance. So the difference between these two words highlights for us that Moses is presented with a choice. Will he consider himself to be called to a mission or just go with the flow? As Yasmin explains so eloquently in her Dvar Torah, considering the act of sacrifice at face value seems like a barbaric act to us modern readers. But it is possible to find meaning in this ritual if we consider the intent and what the ritual was supposed to signify, and think about how we might transform it to the modern day. As the prophet reminds us, even when it comes to sacrifices, we aren't supposed to just go with the flow. What did the prophet Hosea teach, which Yasmin just read for us? I desire goodness, not sacrifice, obedience to God rather than burnt offerings. Judaism invites us to consider ourselves being called to a mission rather than just going with the flow. While it certainly isn't easy to hold that tension of joy and sorrow, in doing so, by recognizing even at times of joy that the world is in need of repair, we are reminded that we are all called on the mission to harness our joy and share it. The rabbis teach in Pirkei Avot, chapter 1, verse 2, that these small acts of gemilut chasadim, of loving kindness, aren't just a nicety or a sign of good manners. They are the very foundation of the world. And so we acknowledge this morning that there are many reasons for our hearts to feel heavy with worry and sorrow. But that shouldn't stop us from embracing the joy of this morning's celebrations. For as Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, who is more widely known under her blogger name, the Velveteen Rabbi, reminds us, Judaism doesn't ask us to choose between the sweetness of celebration and the bitterness of sorrow. Rather, our tradition teaches that our hearts are flexible enough to hold both. And so, as we celebrate with Yasmin and her family and friends, with Helen and all in our community, here in our sanctuary in Northwood, and in the small sanctuaries of your homes all around the world, let us embrace our mission to take our joy and transform it into gemilut chasadim, loving kindness. Together, let us lay the foundations for a better world. Ken Yehi Ratzon, for this is surely God's will. Amen.